Right, so, welcome everyone. Today is August 1st. Sylvania Development Committee. We have at least 4 members plus 2 select board members. So, I believe we have a quorum unless anyone objects to it. Sorry, I'm just trying to hear. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that air conditioner is a little loud.
It's really bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait until I hear the recording to see what we get.
Oh, man. I wish you luck.
That's the price, so we can stay cool in the town office for now. So, with all that said,
No.
are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Max?
Yep.
I think the generic references to Hofstas and trails covers the remarks I was going to make, so I have no adjustments.
Okay. Are there any citizens' comments? There are none in the audience. I'm not seeing any online. So, approval of the July 11th minutes. I trust everyone read them. Yep, lots of great care, but I sent them very late today.
I don't have any corrections or adjustments. I
Move it.
move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, hearing none, all those in favor? Okay, not too much stuff. So, survey. The sense revised copy that takes into account all the notes from July 11th. Were there any notes that remaining notes people had? I incorporated Johnny's extra column, the additional comments, the preserving open space for the Sylvania side, the utility electrical storage, separating the Hofstas house into 2 acres and the entire lot. I don't think there were really any other comments.
I'm just looking for the final copy of the final version of the.
While you are finding that, just an update on that. I believe that will actually be sent out in September with the tax bills. I am getting it sent. I'm giving it to Tanya, who's gonna send it off to people who print and then mail out the tax bills for us. So that should be great.
Hey, did you say there was going to be an online option for people to fill it out or no?
I think we chose not to do that anymore because everyone's going to get it in town.
Okay.
Use.
Will not get tax bill.
Except who?
Renters.
Renters.
Oh.
I mean, if there's a renter who calls and says, I'd like to do it, then we could for them. I do it for them.
How would they know that it's happening?
We could, there could be a notice in the Lincoln County News if we're really wanting to get them that just says, if you haven't gotten it, call the town office. Have any thoughts or?
I think it matters that we don't just get feedback from property owners, but get feedback from citizens.
Talk to Julie a bit more about that, but that's likely what will happen. We'll just put an ad in like County News that says if you haven't done it, it would just be contacting me directly so that I can either do it for them or give them it, or then I can make a link for them. Okay, but that's usually.
Could we have something at the counter? Like a stack of surveys, people walk in to do county business, and then there's,
Yeah, we can.
attention,
Yeah, I mean,
just a way to sort of maximize the response that we get?
Yeah, I'd have to check with Julie and Pam just to be sure, and Rose to make sure that they're fine with that. But
Okay.
it's not out of practice to just have a few
A
items
few
there.
items there, just a placard that says, fill out the survey about your thoughts on the Sylvania site or something like that.
I think the best we've ever done on a survey is like a 15% return. We got that on a broadband survey back in 2015 or 14.
Yeah, we got a public transportation survey too. What
We did, I don't know, I don't remember what the return rate was on that,
Yeah.
but it wasn't 15%.
I think we have a community survey and the community center survey and the public survey. I think like 2,000 letters went out. We got about 500 responses from each.
On the community center survey? Anyway,
I-
if we get 15%, I'll be happy.
I would about
15%.
15 to 20 is what we usually get. From these.
Okay.
And it's the Sylvania side, so I think we're going to get a lot of interest. It's going to the tax bills directly. I'd say this is going to get a good response.
Do we want to make a extra effort to contact immediate neighbors of the site? Like the bowling center and the property owners, just because they're going to be the ones most directed by what happens at the site.
Yeah, what's that development down in the valley there? Marble Oaks. Marble Oaks.
That's
and,
what I was
The,
thinking of.
the trailer park across the way, those are all sort of renters. I don't think they own the lots.
You're right, they won't get a copy.
Yeah,
But I'm happy to spend a weekend or two going around door to door asking people, if not,
we'll just drop them in the
or
door.
just drop them in the, yeah, that's a better idea. Just make sure that they get it.
Yeah.
Hey, Max?
Yep.
Max, I'm wondering, what are the public notice, individual notice requirements for, say, conditional uses, rezonings, that sort of thing?
So are you talking about a hypothetical where we select the use for the site? So,
Yes.
so assuming it's something that goes to the planning board, then there would be a letter sent out to every direct abutter. And that includes people across the right of way. There would be that, and there would be a notice in the Lincoln County News.
Mhm.
Um,
That notification as to landowners would certainly be the minimum that we ought to fulfill in this case. But I like the notion that others have mentioned of reaching out somewhat further to the individual residences within some radius.
Yeah, what usually is done is I have to send letters to people based on the tax bills I have. And it hasn't been done there yet. I know I've had to send one out to every single person who is in a mobile home park. So in this case, I'd be sending notices. If it goes to the planning board, if there was a rezoning, then notices would be sent to the people on that mobile home.
So you have addresses for all the mobile home parks?
I do.
Then we can just mail it, the survey to them, can't we?
Yeah, and I'll just check with Daryl to be sure that the people in the Skyview, I think it's Skyview, is the one that's next to the bowling alley.
There's one over there on Lady Slipper Lane. There's one across over by Hannaford's,
Right, I'm thinking of the one that, well, I'm thinking more of the one that's at,
by the bowling alley. I mean, they
Yeah,
should
bowling
have
alley.
all get the survey.
Brookside.
Yeah, that's right.
well, I'd assume each one would be getting it because we had to go through a thing on the select board about tax acquired properties. And one of them was a trailer over at Lake Slipper Lane in the mobile home park. So I would imagine they are getting the tax, but we can make sure that. Yeah. But I was talking in reference to what Carl was saying about the actual notices. We would be sending a letter directly to.
Right.
them. There's that zoning.
Yeah.
And then, Carl, the other part, if the site is changing its zone from right now industrial to literally anything else, we'd have to go through the planning board having a public hearing, the select board would have to have public meeting, and then it would go to the town for a vote for the change.
What is the date that we're gonna send it out, and when is the closing date?
I'm gonna have to amend the closing date because I thought the
Yeah,
letters
this
were,
says August 18th.
because I thought they were being mailed out in July, but they aren't. We're probably gonna be looking at more. I'd have to check with Julie when that's being sent out. I think it's being sent out early September, so we probably want to get them back maybe the end of September. Because 3 weeks, I think, is enough for people to fill out 2 pages.
The people who pay their bills right away will fill out the form right away, and a lot won't fill them out, they'll go in the drawer somewhere.
Yeah, usually like the first week you get 12, 13% of the responses right there, and then you're out of the 15% that Bob's talking about. You'll get the 13% almost immediately. And the last 2 are just coming in at last second.
On those surveys, they turn them in at the drugstore, the library, and the town office. We're only saying the town office in our option. Wondering if we ought to give them the option of the other 2 as well.
Well, the library, I leave to you because you actually have the contact with the library. I don't know if the drugstore also wants to do it, but we'd have to we'd have to check with them.
Yeah. But you'd need to put that on the form as an option.
Right. I just put the town office because obviously the town office is fine with that, but the library and the drugstore, I don't want to make assumptions.
Well, we need to ask them.
We do need to ask.
Yeah, now until September, right?
Yep.
So, are you gonna follow up on that, Max, or do you want one of us to follow up?
Bob, I just want a confirmation from, if you can reach out to Catherine.
Yeah, I'm not on the board anymore, but yeah, I can.
And that would just be appreciated. And I
Yeah,
can reach
I'll
out,
ask her.
and I can reach out.
Sure.
Helpful to think about having the bowling alley as a drop.
Sorry?
Would it be helpful to think about having the bowling alley as a place where people could drop it off if we want to maximize hearing from people who live nearby?
Yeah, we've never used the bowling alley. Why not?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody uses Hannaford.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Would Hannaford do it?
I don't know. We've never bothered to ask them because they're all so darn busy with other stuff. But I guess asking doesn't hurt. I'm gonna ask Katrina right now.
I'll reach out to each of them, and if they have some place they can drop off, then that's fine. Town office, it's just easier, especially now that we have the drop off box.
Sure.
Any other? So let's.
Well, a couple of nuts and bolts questions. Is that gonna be, are these forms gonna be transcribed into a spreadsheet or something so that, you know, we won't be looking at a sheet of papers? And will there be, you know, like sorting and statistical? This many were in favor of open space, this many was, is there gonna be some sort of analysis before the committee gets it?
Yep. So assuming I can get it back at the actual deadline, by the deadline time, I hope that I can just take a day to put it all onto a Survey Planet. And they actually have a way of just breaking it down into charts. Or I could do an Excel sheet and make a chart from that. It's however people want to.
Otherwise, I'm gonna do it, and everybody else on the board would have to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of duplicated effort.
Well, that's why I'm hoping that it gets sent out early September so that I give people 3 weeks, and then that gives me a day at least so I can put it all together and then send it out to everyone so we can see it in the October meeting. That's my. Any other comments or questions for the input/survey? none. So, Hofs's house. Carl, do you want to give any updates on the Hofs's house with the roof? Because I heard about the tarp and I didn't have anything else, but you're more knowledgeable on that one than I am.
Yeah, I regret that the installation barely lasted 1 month. Medomic winds were stronger than I'd expected. We reinforced the tarp at the top, and it still failed after about 3 or 4 weeks. But we need to make a decision if we would like to reestablish that and correctly and for at least a few months. I spoke with a roofer who told me how that should have been mounted to the top. And if it's the committee's desire, we should either remove the tarp because in its present condition, it conveys a lot of disregard for the property. Or we should ask John to deploy the bucket truck and we'll correctly install the top end of that tarp. I'd like to see it installed because I hate to see more damage occur due to the most recent roof damage in the front of the house. And parenthetically, John and Will and his staff did a terrific job showing up with the bucket truck and making that job go quite well.
What would correct installation look like?
The top end of the, good question. The top end of the tarp, I shouldn't have relied on grommets, no matter how much I reinforced them with duct tape. Roofer told me, duct tape, gosh. A roofer told me take a piece of 1x3, run it the entire length of the top, fold it over 2 times, and screw it together so that as you attach the lines from the other side of the house, you're pulling on the wood, not the tarp. He said that's how he installs a tarp for a longer period of time on a metal roof when you obviously can't be screwing into the metal roof.
Did we lease that bucket truck? I think we did, didn't we?
I'm losing you.
Now, do we have a bucket truck down at the DPW?
I thought we did.
Okay.
We were talking with
I
them
mean,
about.
did it have Waldeboro, Maine written on the side?
John Daigle has it.
There was
John
somebody
Daigle has,
who had a bucket truck that was loaning it to us.
Oh, okay, because I didn't think
Correct.
the town had one.
That's what I see.
Yeah.
That's right.
so I think it's the committee's position needs to be conveyed, determined tonight. Remove the tarp in its entirety, or take another crack at it using a better construction practice.
I'd make a motion for the latter. Take another crack at it with the board.
Yeah, second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous.
Can you tell me, has the Historical Society provided any information? Are they interested in picking up that incubator?
It's funny, Billy Maxwell was just here like 10 minutes ago, and I did not ask him. But I know I did give him the keys, and constantly pushing that he needs to get the incubator out because that's like the one big item that they really should be saving. I believe he got it out. I'll probably check.
He's going to be here tonight.
I was about to say the 250th is actually meeting at 6, so
Yep.
we'll know tonight. And I can just send an email out to everyone saying that's the perfect one. I think other than tarp, there really wasn't anything else on the Hofs's house unless people have some questions about it. See none. So if there's nothing else on the Hofs's house, next item I had was trails. So I actually was able to go out to Sylvania just today and hopefully some people will see it on the screen. There is, I was able to actually trek it. Because what happened was lead vans had to go out and they had to clear a way to get to the wells and everything. So what you see is actually when I was able to walk and get to each point where the wells are. This is the shack that we all know, love, you know. And there are obvious stopping points, like they only wanted to get it to their well, so it's not like it could get all the way down to the water, but there were actually some areas that you could expand beyond that. I did take a few pictures. I only have just a few though to share. But I mean, this was maybe the furthest I could get right down here. Does anyone have any, and I'm gonna probably permanently close out the photos once I'm done. So does anyone have any questions on this one before I close out on it? Or?
Sorry, the trail itself is not shown, or is it shown?
The trail is the orange/blue area. Like this is me coming from the parking lot, go all the way down a little hut, and then the blue area is areas that lead vamp was able to cut all the way. There's a little high grass, but it's not. I mean, like it is nowhere near as bad as what we experience. It's not up to the waist. It's maybe up to like maybe your ankle.
Okay.
So some ticks, but it's not like you're going to be covered in ticks in 2 steps.
I mean, the times I've walked along that shoreline, maybe twice, probably within 150 to 100 feet of the water. With the exception of some areas where you need to build a bridge.
Right.
It was very doable and it was nice. It was a nice walk. I'm just,
It's beautiful in there.
wondering why we're not getting, or is this not?
This was an informal survey that you did. This is not Potomac Valley Land Trust, correct?
Right. This is me 2 hours ago.
Oh, okay. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. Midcoast Conservancy, I've been trying to get it, but they're very busy right now that I don't even think they're aware that those areas were trimmed down, so they probably didn't send anyone out yet.
Okay. But you could go through those areas and then get down further more easily and take a walk along the shore.
Yeah.
Especially from the south.
Yeah.
I think around here, this is still the Hobbs's house we're at, right around here. And then obviously you're more in Sylvania over here. Yeah, this was just a quick show of what I did in a quick 2 hours, like quick 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And I'll just go through some of the pictures. Oops. Sorry about that. So this is, this is at the beginning. I think some people might be able to see that it's a bit more clear over here. But then they also cleared it down this way.
Yeah.
So there's 2 different paths you can go to see all their branching out areas. I'm sorry. Say a power or something. That's going to be annoying. And then like this is typically what would be seen. Just like this is the end where you can still see where there's tall grass. Some people can trek through it, but there might be some trees around it that you could go around where it's not as bad, but obviously it's going to be wherever the weather is. But this is just a beautiful picture that I took actually. This was one of the dead ends here, but this was just very nice spots, you know? Like I completely forgot that there's waterfront nearby and that you're near a state road from there because it's just so isolated. But this is maybe, have to find that trail again, but this was as close as I could get to the water with what they've done. And I think the well is right over here. And then again, just go around through the trees here and just kind of path through there. Although, again, these are the trails that I've walked based on what my advance had to do to get to those wells. I don't know if we want those exact same trails because that means we're putting people on the same exact trails as to the wells. Yeah, that was about it. I can open up any of the pictures again if people want.
But for now, for just access, for people being able to go down and think
Mhm.
about what there is and what there isn't, would we have a way of not worrying right now about clearing places for new trails, but just keeping the things that are kind of clear?
So you're saying maintaining it so that it's still accessible? So, yes.
Would that be a hard, expensive thing to do? And would it serve any purpose?
Well, I leave that to volunteers, but
Yeah.
unless I misinterpreted what the select board did back in June, we can still explore it as long as you're on the Conservation Commission or the Sylvania Committee, just exploring the trails. I don't think we've committed nothing financial has been committed yet. That's when we have something more comprehensive with the Midcoast Conservancy.
Right, but lead vents won't be coming out to maintain these. They just have to come out once or
They
twice.
just to do their 1 or 2 ground well testings and that's it.
So
They must have mowed this year then.
Yes.
that's a-
Yeah, this was like a week or 2 after we did our visit,
Okay.
which I think is just terrible timing.
Oh, so this wasn't clear when you first got it.
Oh, yeah, that
Okay.
was fun times.
but there's no way that the town can mow what's already been mowed.
We can, it's just, we're probably just not gonna send public works out to keep it down that whole time, because we're paying people to go do it.
Right.
If a volunteer wants to go down and do it, they certainly can.
And how often does lead vents come out and do whatever they just did? It's not very often.
All they care about is access to the wellheads. That's
Yeah,
all they
right.
care about.
And that's only once a year. Actually, it's less than that, isn't it now?
Well, they've cut back on the treatment. I don't know whether they've cut back on the sampling.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, that's probably their one cut,
For
For
the
the
year,
year.
for the summer. Yeah.
because I mean, we're already in August.
Yeah.
And it was actually pretty low by the time I went through, so I don't think. we can cut it. But yeah, I'm gonna have to talk with Midcoast Conservancy a bit more, let them know about that, and maybe reschedule another little walk down with them. Try and see. if that can be done.
Yeah. Work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. Did we ever give or ask for a due date from Potomac Valley Land Trust? Or are they
Just
just?
Conservancy.
Midcoast Conservancy.
It's Midcoast
Yeah.
Conservancy. Yeah, they've already, Midcoast Conservancy.
I asked them if they could get me something within 2 weeks of that site visit back in June. But they're really busy. They've gone through a few staff members recently, so like we were walking with the executive director and it's all summer. They're probably doing a lot of projects as well. So I can reach out to them again, tell them about this and maybe be more, it's time sensitive, you know, we don't know how long this is actually gonna be available. Now's the time to go out and expect it. And they might actually have someone to do it at that point.
You know Tim Trumbauer?
Not personally.
I mean, have you met him? I mean, if you saw him, which he works with Pete and he's really the guy, he's their liaison with the Potomac Valley Council.
I may have met him once.
Yeah, but he'd be the guy to hit up for the walk. And I do have a connection into that organization. So I'll ask my wife why the hell they're not doing anything.
That's a good connection.
And risk my life.
Yeah.
Take her some flowers.
That's a good idea. Mark.
I can mention, at least parenthetically here, that I have a project underway with the Midcoast Conservancy up in the Sheepscot watershed. And in working with them directly over a fairly intensive administrative process, I think they must be spread fairly thin. They have two new employees who I think are still coming up to speed. And secondly, I think that Tim Levy and Tim Trumbauer, the people who kind of get right out in the pucker brush, Isabel and Chris Shorn. I think they were all awfully busy with their Hidden Valley Nature Center projects. So we might not get a lot of attention from them until after the summer, maybe September and October. I'm just suspecting that. So we may have to be tolerant.
Well, I want to sort of be clear here, my thought was we just need them to do the marking. And I'm quite happy to go down there with a chainsaw and a weed whacker and do a lot of the physical work. So marking it, and making sure we don't go off the property, that's what's important. And that's not a lot of effort on their part.
So when you're saying marking it, do you mean like marking the desired
Just-
trail or
just
marking it,
blazes.
or are you saying marking it to be sure we're on the
Well,
same property?
I thought we were going to get blazes on trees so that we knew what the best path was. And then we would, put forwards over muddy areas or, and I would volunteer to do a lot of this stuff myself. Move rocks and weed whack and such.
The local point of contact for the trail crew for the Midcoast Conservancy is the same crew for the MVLT. When I was on that crew for a number of years with Charlie Witherell, Ed Cahora, Mark Daglish, Tim Boley, a whole bunch of people who live here in our zip code. And they do all of the work at Geel and River Park, Riverbrook, and so on. I almost suspect that at the end of the day, you're going to be working with the same people who Midcoast relies upon for their properties, their preserves. And honestly, Ed and Charlie are just about expert at laying out a trail. They've laid out most of the trails that I've seen up at Burkett Mill and the Geel Preserve. And these are our people.
Again, they may be looking at, a major project on their part, but at this point, all we want
Not
is a
Charlie.
trail mark.
Carl's right. Charlie's the guy to go to.
Yeah, is that what you're getting at, Carl? That we should just reach out to Charlie directly?
We might just have a chat with Charlie directly. Yes.
And they could delegate it to the Madonna Council and make it the council's project as opposed to the head office's project.
You might be able to short circuit this and get a little more motion. Yes, I agree with you. And Max, I guess I have just run out of time. I do have to move on and leave the meeting now. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't realize we were already past 5. Was there any other items you wanted to bring up or just had questions of?
Please pass on to John Daigle our appreciation. I think he committed 4 staff and the borrowed bucket truck and spent an entire morning out there. And he may not be entirely happy to go back again, but I sure appreciate what he's done for us already.
All right. I'll make sure to pass it on then.
Okay. I'm going to leave you all. Thank you very much.
Take care, Carl.
Take care. Paul.
Good night.
All right. Was there anything else on the trails topic?
I just have a question. Are we committed to having a trail regardless of what the community input is? I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around what it is we're trying to accomplish right now.
It makes a good point. I assume that we would be building a trail, but I guess it does have to wait until we see what the survey says.
That's right. Still doesn't mean you can't go out and blaze it.
I just wasn't sure how much energy
Ignore
we
the
needed
marks
to
5
put
months
into
down the
getting this
road
done
or
if we
whatever.
weren't sure
It's
that
frustratingly slow. But Charlie'd be a good guy to go out.
I think right now this was just a research item, just like what we've been doing for solar for the last few months. We're not committing to the use right now, but if it comes up in the survey that people want that, we've already done a little bit of the work preparing for it. Until then, there's really no point to the meeting unless we're thinking of something specific. But you're right, if the surveys come back and people just say they don't want trails at all, then we don't have to go down, we don't have to go down to tick infested areas anymore.
Yeah, one of the options,
My ticket fest.
one of the options we don't offer on that survey is to just let it, or did we offer it?
We
Rewild it?
do nothing
off.
That's,
Yeah.
do
Open
nothing.
space.
That's on there. Okay.
Preserve is open space.
Yeah.
That's what-
It's different to say preserve it as open space and to say rewild, let it rewild itself. There's a very different connotation there.
How many people do you think are gonna know what rewild?
I'd be surprised.
It's clear to me. All right, I can
Yeah.
change it to rewild.
If that's what we mean by preserve it as an open space, that's what I would presume we mean. I can't think of anything else, but I mean, you just let it go, man. Just, yeah, ignore it and let nature take its course.
Well, we can only do that to the extent that Lead Vance doesn't go in and clear every year what they have to do.
That's right.
Lead Vance only occupies a small part of the site.
Right.
Other than the one structure, everything else is just, as you saw, a little clearing just to get to some wetlands. That's it. Or groundwater in a sense. So am I changing that item on the survey to rewild it, or are we leaving it as open space?
Yeah, I've seen some people look very skeptical, so maybe we should just let it be.
Yeah, I think it can be implied. We can interpret what it means when the
Yeah.
surveys come
Yeah.
back.
And, if people have questions about it, there's the additional comment section. People will say.
How about preserve as a wild space?
Where we'll have campouts and everything.
Right.
Right. Go wild.
That's right. Run amok space.
That was it on trails, unless there were any other questions. Okay. Batteries was the new topic. This was something briefly touched on last time. And I realized in the minutes I kind of went over this. So I talked with Rumford and a company that works in Blue Bay. I spoke with the economic director up in Rumford, and I spoke with the individual who worked on the battery project down in Blue Bay.
Cool.
Both of them weren't really, I told them the whole project scale and everything, and they said that's not really one for one what we did. It was CMP literally has no other options to do necessary upgrade in these areas, and so that's why they did their battery projects. And so I reached out to the Public Utilities Commission, can't remember the exact person I spoke to, and I asked about the project that's going on in Brunswick. I think it's the article sent. And it was a very similar thing. There's a lot of development, a lot of projects that are going on in Brunswick, but that's why they're doing the batteries as opposed to solar projects. So if CMP wants to put some batteries over at the substation, that's one thing, but this isn't it's hard. None of them can outright say it because of their positions, but if they were in my shoes, none of them would be doing batteries over at Sylvania unless CMP puts a whole substation, is planning on putting a substation there.
So they've got enough room at their existing substation for a couple of containers with batteries in it.
All three of them, they all pretty much said, if batteries are going anywhere, the substation would probably be the ideal spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when I talked more to PUC about what Bob wanted to go at about if there's some statewide movement or some legislation on this, and said no, nothing that they're aware of.
Okay. Well, you've asked the question. Thank you.
Anything else on the batteries? And I can set out a Janet and Johnny since they weren't here, just as an update.
So Max, are you going to contact Charlie?
Unless you have them in your contacts already,
I can send the contact information to you.
if you can. That'd be great.
I'll do that.
else on the batteries? Right now, or just comments from the committee? There's just some general questions or comments.
I apologize. We may have discussed this before, and I'm just blanking out on it. But what is the status of the footprint? That was one of the main things we wanted to do, was do something to stabilize the footprint. Has there been any movement on keeping it from cracking and deteriorating?
So I think we've been getting back and forth answers from the DEP because Julie said that she spoke with Max Lewick and he said, yep, you're fine doing the cap. But when I reached out to him, he would say, show me your whole plan. To which I then asked Julie, and then Julie asks Max, and he says, no, you're good. It's this weird triangle at that point.
'Cause it seems, especially if, we're not going to be coming to a master plan for the site, I don't think anytime soon, but the longer we let that footprint just sit untreated, it just deteriorates more and becomes more of an eyesore. So
I think Julie has been ready to do it. I think it's just been DEP wants to say yes. Actually, I can quickly send it back to see if Julie's here.
I thought we had gotten permission to put some new kind of surface down over the.
I thought they agreed that we could put some, what's the clay you put on stuff? Thank you, bentonite on it.
Okay.
Didn't he say that? Didn't Max Lewick say that?
Again, that's where I'm confused. That's what Julie's kind of passed on. That
I thought Janet also heard it.
well, when I I remember coming to one of these meetings and saying, can Max Lewick come to a meeting and go over the capping and more questions. When I reached out to him, he said he wanted us to submit the plan. And he would say yes or no to something this, pretty much what everyone says. Oh yeah, he said yes already to it. He wouldn't say that. So that's where I've been confused as well. But I think Julie and John Daigle from Public Works have been kind of ready. It's just been actually getting the yes to do it. But we do want to do it.
And when he says plan, is he talking about the master plan or a short-term,
I don't think it's-
short-term stabilization?
I don't think he's talking about the overall plan. I think he's just talking about you're going to cap it. What do you mean by actually cap it? Like show a map, show where it's going to happen, material.
Yeah, that's a good point, The site is not necessarily flat because the foundations in some places are higher than other places. So in order to do it, you'd have to, you bring the grade, if you wanted a relatively flat piece of property, like maybe a ball field or something, I don't know. You'd have to bring that up or either that or demolish the foundations and then put the cap on top of it. So, yeah, you would really, they would really need to see a plan. See a plan.
Where would the funding come once once we decide on what to do? Do we have funding to do that, or is that
We have to raise it, put a line item in the budget, I guess, and raise it.
There's got to be
Raise
some
some money.
grant money for
I was
brownfield
gonna
remediation.
say,
Yeah,
It
I
might be-
figured you were going to point to me the moment you said
Yeah.
grant.
Well, grant, I mean,
Well, one thing is going to be the cost. We have to see how much it's going to cost. If it's low enough, there might be an alternative to doing it instead of get it done instead of through a grant. But I just have to see what those figures look like first. And there, which one would it be?
Well, I just put a mound septic system in with ordinary dirt and it was $23,000. We're talking a lot of money to import, not just fill, but bentonite.
and it may not have to be bentonite.
That's
I mean, it may be engineered in a different way, so. But yeah, you're right, we need to figure out how it's
I'm not-
done.
what is bentonite? I'm not familiar
It's a
with it.
clay that it.
Just a loose clay kind of thing?
No, it's a clay that you, Core is in mud and it sets and it makes a barrier.
We use it to cap landfills.
Okay.
Manufactured.
It's
No, it's
actually,
mine.
it's actually comes out of the ocean, doesn't it? The bottom of the ocean. It's crustaceans that have,
No, I think you're
Died
thinking
and
of
fired.
diatomaceous earth.
Am
No,
I
this is
thinking of-
bentonite. It's mined out in the west
so I'm
somewhere.
mixing it up,
Wyoming or something.
mixing it up with something else.
Yeah, maybe.
I am.
Yeah, they have trains of it.
Yeah.
Train cars full of it. They used to say Benton.
And it becomes an
On
impervious
west,
sort of thing, or?
That's what they line landfills and cap landfills with, so that the leakage, the toxins from the landfill can't leak out.
Once I actually have something more solid answer from DEP, then I can share that with them. I'd like to get an answer on the cap as well.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a natural first step because it would greatly improve
The area.
the area and keep the degradation from getting any worse than it is.
And it wouldn't
You know what might
foreclose
be
on anything.
first
from-
step?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, when you need a hospital or you need a wastewater treatment plant, you have a preliminary facilities plan done. And after we get this report, we can ask, or we can decide what we want to do, and then if it involves remediation, we can do a first step and get a facilities plan. Those are usually low cost, relatively low cost. It's the actual work that costs the money.
Would Dorsey do something like that? Or we just go up for an RFP?
An RFP would probably be better, just dotting the i's, crossing the t's. There might be someone who can offer a better deal, someone who's probably done something very similar to this project.
Yep. Yeah, Pine Tree might be another one because they engineer landfill stuff.
Other general comments from the committee? Questions or? Alright. There are none. At the next meeting for. Let's see.
First Monday will be Labor Day, right?
Right, so the next meeting would be September 12th,
September 12th.
because that would be the first, because September 5th is going to be Labor Day.
And the surveys will have gone out by then, hopefully.
That is my hope. And I also hope they were going to be out in July. All right. That said, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All right. All those